Come on. We live in challenging, edgy times, so let's lean in. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome to the Edge of Everyday. Are you standing at your own edge? Are you craving deeper conversations? Do you know there's more waiting for you just beyond your comfort zone? If you answered yes to any of those questions, the Edge of Everyday is the place for you. Tune in live with me and my friends and colleagues as we share stories and tough talk about pushing boundaries and exploring our rough edges. You know, the ones between fear and courage, grief and joy, ambition and vulnerability, change and becoming. Here, we explore contradiction. Here, we hold paradox. We confront the truths we've been taught to ignore. Real talk with real people that spark provocative invitations to leap out of what's safe. The Edge is where you come alive. The Edge of Everyday. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone. I'm Sandra Bargman, and welcome back to The Edge of Everyday. How do spiritual narratives shape our ability to recognize one another as sacred? What if the stories we tell about God shape the violence we permit? We can all agree that we are living through a time of immense grief, polarization, and moral exhaustion. And beneath our political events, we find deeper stories about power, sacredness, domination, and what we believe about human life. Today's conversation explores one of those forgotten stories through the figure of Asherah and the recovery of goddess traditions. As we approach the summer solstice, a sacred season of light, we also hold the layered meanings of Father's Day and Juneteenth, remembrance, liberation, and the reimagining of power. This time of year carries powerful contradictions and possibilities. Father's Day asks us to reflect on protection, guidance, and masculine presence. Juneteenth reminds us that freedom delayed is freedom denied. And the summer solstice marks the longest day of light here in the Northern Hemisphere. Together, they call us into deeper conversations about memory, justice, ancestry, and the kind of world we are creating for future generations. In this episode, we explore how spirituality, the feminine divine, and sacred storytelling can help us navigate grief, justice, and the longing for a more humane world. Today, we are live in the Hive with Trista Hendren, author, speaker, visionary founder of Girl God Books, and one powerful voice and leader in the dismantling of the patriarchal mindset and the remembrance and return to the wisdom and mystery of the divine feminine and to the ancient truth of kinship, reciprocity, and interbeing. Trista founded Girl God Books in 2011 to support a necessary unraveling of the patriarchal worldview of divinity. Her first book, The Girl God, a children's picture book, was a response to her own daughter's inability to see herself reflected in God. Since then, she has published more than 50 books with hundreds of contributors from across the globe. Originally from Portland, Oregon, she now lives in Bergen, Norway, with her family. You can find more about her projects at thegirlgod.com. Welcome, Trista Hendren.
Thank you so much for having me back, Sandra.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Yes, we've had Trista on the show before, and it was right around this time last year.
Yeah.
We recorded on Earth Day, and it dropped on May Day. And we had planned at that time, listeners, I wanted to get Trista back on the show because I was, well, also the glorious book that had just come out, Asherah, which we're going to talk about today, was we talked about a little bit because it had just come out, but I hadn't quite read it yet because it hadn't arrived. So I was hell bent to get you back to talk about that, but also just I realized in our conversation I had this sort of low grade. I was dealing with you with the understanding that everyone listening would know what the goddess is and who she is, and would understand that that's a tradition in the in a pre-religious tradition in the world. And I was sort of asking questions based on the assumption that people would know that. So, in addition to wanting to talk about the book, I wanted to really tease that open in more of a teaching sort of way for my listeners. An invitational, make it for both the beginner and the well-seasoned. But before we get into all of that, I want to I let people know how I know my guests. And I met Trista. She doesn't remember this, but I do. I met her because I went to the goddess gathering for the crone. It's now, I think, is it 4 years ago? 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Who knows? Uh-oh, have you frozen? You might have frozen. I'm going to keep talking and hope you get back. I met her at that gathering. Trista came on. There, she's back. Trista came and spoke about Girl God books and gave a wonderful presentation, and I introduced myself alongside of all of the attendees. So they all wanted to get next to Trista, and it was a delight. And one of these days, I hope our paths cross again in person.
For sure. And I think I met you with Dr. Lynn Sedgmore. And I think last
Yes.
time I was on, I wore the necklace that she had made for me. And then this time I make the rosary she made for me.
Oh, beautiful.
So she, among
Yes.
other things, makes jewelry, but
She's an extraordinary.
multi-talented woman.
She is truly multi-talented. She gave me, I've had Dr. Lynn Sedgmore listeners on the show a couple of times, and I plan to have her on again. Oh, I just heard my phone. I'm a bad girl. I forgot to turn it off this time. Hang on, let me turn it off.
Speaking of
Uh,
which, I think I also forgot.
I know I'm always so diligent about that, but oh well. We're all allowed to be human. Okay, that's off and that's off. Okay. And we are live in the Hive. We don't edit here. So if something goes wrong, everyone hears it. We don't edit. Yeah, so I've had Dr. Lynn Sedgmore on a couple of times, both for books, and she has a new book coming out. So I'm going to be having her on
I endorsed
again.
it. It's a great book.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yay.
I got an
I'll reach
early
out to
peek.
her.
I'm excited. I'm not
I
sure when
love,
it's coming out though, exactly. I need to check in with her. So
yeah. Well, I'm going to send her an email later today and tell her I spoke with
yeah, you
you
should
and,
have her talking about that. You
oh,
need a show
totally.
about that because it's so fascinating and I didn't know anything about it before I read her book.
The
So I was
Enneagram.
like, oh my gosh. I had to do a little like other research as well because it wasn't a subject that I knew a lot about, but
Yeah, of course I knew it as a self-assessment, but I didn't know much about it either. Lynn totally educated me on it. In fact, we so liked each other. We had a separate Zoom interview where she went over I had to take the test and she helped me to understand it all and who I was. And it was
do you
absolute,
remember
gave
what
me
you ended up
resources.
with?
I'm an 8. I'm a challenger. An 8 with
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
a 7 wing. Interesting. Lynn and I were exactly the same. I laughed so
Oh
hard.
yeah, yeah, I
She,
remember that from okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a lot to dig in there.
yeah, totally. And so, what are you?
I'm a two, a helper.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was kind of sad when I first read, and then I'm like, you know what? That totally makes sense. Like in retrospect, like the books, the anthologies, getting women's voices out there. I'm very much into the mother archetype. Like I live for my children. And I was like, yeah, that's so cute.
Oh my, totally. It does. Yeah. Totally. Well, that brings me to, what identity do you lead with? I ask this of all of my guests. And even if they're coming on again for a second or a third time, I ask it because that can shift. But that was your answer last time.
Yeah, it
What
probably was.
identity do you
Yeah,
lead with?
yeah. I mean, because I was the oldest child, big sister, kind of second mother type figure, especially to my younger sister. So yeah, I think I've just and I love my children. I love having people here. I love having all their friends here. We have an open door policy. We have probably
Mm.
tonight is the one night it's just me and my husband, but usually we have multiple stray children with us, and I love it. Actually, I totally love it. So,
It's a real gift. It's a true gift. I love it. And so, let's get into your Asherah, the book. I want to read a passage from it that I highlighted and rediscovered it when I pulled it back out in time for our talk today. It's by Denise Renier
mhm.
from her The Embodied Goddess, Healing, Sensuality, and the Legacy of Asherah. Before I read it, I want to, here's the cover, folks, for those of you watching the video. It's a gorgeous book. It will appeal if you're curious, a novice, a beginner, or you're a well-seasoned goddess lover. This book is for you. If there are scholarly, academic writings in here, there's creative writing, there's storytelling, there is poetry, there's art. There's something for everyone. And if you are like me and you like all of those, you're going to inhale this book. It's absolutely spectacular. So this is the first couple paragraphs, and I think it really sets the tone for diving into this discussion about um, the divine feminine, goddess tradition, Asherah, and all of the goddesses. I do not remember the first time I lost my body. Perhaps it was the slow, insidious unraveling that happens when the world teaches a girl that her body is not her own. Perhaps it was the result of trauma or the way patriarchal spirituality divorced flesh from the divine. But I do remember the first time I found my way back. It was not in a church or a temple. It was in movement, in the grounding press of my feet to the earth, to the dance floor, in the way my breath filled space inside me like the branches of an ancient tree reaching for the sky. As I deepened my work in embodiment and sexuality, I began to understand that this return was not just personal, it was ancestral. The mother tree, the symbol of Asherah, the lost goddess of the ancient Near East, has been severed from history, cut down and buried beneath layers of shame and silence. Yet, like the roots of a felled tree, she remained alive beneath the surface, waiting for those who would remember her. I was one of those people, and perhaps you are too.
Mm.
Gives me a lump in my throat and tears in my eyes. So true.
Mhm.
So, so true. So, Trista, for those who are new to this conversation, who and what is the goddess, and what first drew you to the goddess traditions, and what felt missing in the spiritual landscape you inherited?
Mm. Well, the goddess is the most ancient deity. Goddess was before God and
Yes.
then kind of morphed first through having a consort and then, kind of the consort took over and became God. So what most of us are taught is fairly limited. It's fairly recent history, maybe 4 to 5 thousand years. For most of humanity's history, or I would say history, um, thousands and hundreds and thousands of years, God was always a woman. And, the earliest were probably animal figurines and then vulvas and then, morphed into more the female form. But you can find the goddess in all the faith traditions, including Judaism and Christianity, where, you'll find Asherah. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't really realize anything was missing for a long time. I was planning to become a minister in the
Oh, that's
Christian
right.
faith.
Yes.
So, when I was younger, I would have thought goddess was a very scary idea and been very against that. But um, after I had left my undergraduate program to study religion, and I quickly became an atheist in that program because I was like, when you actually read the Bible, it is troubling
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Hello.
really add up when you look at the history. Even a lot of the stories are quite frightening and, genocidal, sexual violence. Um, I mean, of course, there's good things in the Bible as well, or people wouldn't stick to it, but I'm not entirely sure that a lot of people have read the Bible in its entirety.
Yeah.
And
I
I
would
had
agree
at
with
that
that.
time, yeah, several, I'd read it many times because I was very devout. But really, for me, it was like looking into the cultural, historic, linguistic roots. And I was just like, this is a hard no. Um, and then I transferred to another school and got into feminism and then I transferred back to Portland State, which I never thought I would go to my home college, but I actually loved it there. And then that was where I was first introduced to Goddess, just actually by way of like one of those book of the month clubs.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't have it here. I moved my bookshelves around. I should have brought it. Didn't think about this, but I actually rebought the first book that I was a Burley Mutant anthology. I think that's maybe what has drawn me into anthologies because
Mm.
she had a lot of artwork and more poetry than I would say essays. But um, that was my first kind of subversive act, is keeping that out on my coffee table when my father would come. He probably
Yes.
was dying inside, but I think he probably thought it was just a phase, and then it kind of grew into a bit more than that.
I love it. Well, and I love that you brought up being drawn to anthologies. And yeah, I love them as well. And I so loved Asherah. So give us a bit of the history to we need to, you'll have to visit my original conversation with Trista, where she unpacks her history much more. But I wanted to include that, of course, in this episode for context and to speak about Girl God Books, who published Asherah, and this is your publishing company. Give us the history of Girl God Books and what that's been like for you.
Well, I didn't really start out thinking I was going to have a publishing company. um, I didn't really know what I was doing at that time. I had I went after my undergraduate because my family didn't really think it was realistic to write or to work in like social sciences and that kind of thing. So I went and got an MBA, and then I worked in finance as a mortgage broker for 13 years, and then my world
Wow.
just sort of collapsed with the economic decline in
Yeah.
2008, and my grandparents, both my grandmothers became terminal at the same time, and I was going through a divorce. So I was just like,
Life had imploded.
yeah, life exploded for sure. And then yeah, I did a lot of reading during that time, and then I was raising my children into faith traditions because I ended up converting to Islam in my early 20s. And so I was doing both with my children. And then my daughter really didn't, it didn't resonate with her because she's a girl and,
Mm.
all the language is male. And it was interesting to me because even though I knew about the goddess to some extent and I had studied feminism, I hadn't thought about the effect of bringing her up within patriarchal religions would be. And it was great for my
Mm.
son, but for my daughter, it was, and I think seeing her struggle made me kind of revisit my own struggles, which had just kind of been squashed down. Like, I don't think I would have ever been able to address that as a child myself in the family that I
Mm.
was born into because it was very, fundamentalist, and that would have been
Yeah, it was
really
baked
rocked the
right
boat.
in. Yeah.
It would not have been a conversation I would have felt comfortable having with probably anyone when I was young.
Wow. It's interesting. Well, I can't breeze over this. I want to talk about it again. We talk about this in the other conversation, but how did you convert? What brought you to conversion to Islam?
It was actually Islamophobia, because the way that my ex-husband was treated and the way that people reacted when they found out I was married to a Muslim man, Arab from Lebanon, just didn't track at all with the person that he was. And especially after I went to Lebanon and I met his family, and they're just the most amazing people. And I've remained close with him. I still consider him a soulmate, close with his family. I still consider them my family, my sisters, my brothers. And um, I was not particularly interested. And I told him from the very start, I'm like, I'm not going to convert to Islam. And he's like, that's fine, And there is, I don't think people understand this, but in Islam, it's the saying is there is no compulsion in religion. Like you're not allowed to be a missionary toward other people. It's not part of the religion. So when we came back from Lebanon, it was not too far until Ramadan, and I thought it was so beautiful. And I was like, I really want to do Ramadan. So I started studying, I started learning Arabic, learning some verses of the Quran. You have to memorize them and say them properly and whatnot. So yeah, I really liked it, and I decided to convert. And I mean, I think it's still very much a part of me. I don't actively practice anymore, but it definitely contributed to the person that I am and my journey.
Beautiful. Yeah, I remember when I was in seminary reading the Quran. I loved it, and I was very drawn to Islam. Yeah,
It's very beautiful to hear it recited.
yeah, truly,
Yeah. It's very
truly.
calming. That was the other thing I think that drew me in because Hussein would play it like in the car, and I just loved it. I didn't know what they were saying, but I loved the sound of it. I was just
Yeah.
like, wow, this is so calming. And the prayer itself is very calming. It is like sort of a form of yoga, and you get actually the same health benefits from doing the five prayers every day as if you were like a yogini, because we lose a lot of these movements. So it
Mm.
is actually very good for you. I did recently rebuy a prayer mat here, and I didn't end up doing it, but I sometimes I've played with changing Allah to Allah and doing the prayers that way. So it's the feminine. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. Ah, beautiful. So back to your desire to create Girl God books, and your daughter not seeing herself in Islam. So what inspired? So you wrote this book for her. Take it away.
Hmm. Yeah, I wrote her this book, and then just more ideas just kept coming. So then I wrote the second book was kind of for both my children about Mother Earth,
Mm.
and it was kind of based, kind of a lot of the things that I've written have been based on one or two sentences that my children have said. But I remember we had gone car free and we were walking to school, and my daughter had learned that the polar bears were going extinct. And she said, Mommy, I think cars should go extinct, not polar bears. So I kind of incorporated that into the book and made a story about loving the earth. And then my son was 8, or maybe he was 7 when I wrote it, but he's like, "Oh, can you write a book for me, just for me?"
Aw.
So then I wrote Tell Me Why, which is a feminist book for boys, and just all the things that I wanted my son to know, like in case I hadn't told him or he hadn't, picked it up. And he is the best boy, I have to say.
Oh,
So, yeah.
oh. every young boy needs this. Every old man needs this book. Oh, yeah. Well, and we
Yeah,
are
all the
so
children's books are kind of written, or my children's books are written for adults and children so that you can kind of go back and there's a lot of quotes and artwork in there too. So I've
mm,
had women do it, especially the Girl Goddess, like art therapy and like working through like their religious wounding.
oh,
Because
brilliant.
there's a lot of like poetry, there's quotes, and then the artwork itself, like the painting behind me is in the
Which is
book.
stunning.
So it's like, to me, I think in some ways, artwork is more important than the written word. I mean, that was the written word in some ways. I don't know if you've read The Alphabet and the Goddess, but in some ways, the written word kind of set us back as females, I think. And I think a lot of women seeing these visual images of the goddess wakes up something in them
Mm,
that maybe they're not ready to read and absorb yet. But when you see it, you're like, oh, like our Willendorf statue, when people come, they're just like, oh my gosh.
yeah. Tell the story about that. Share with our listeners.
Yeah, so I don't even know why we decided to do this exactly. I'm trying to remember.
I
It's been
followed
a
the
day.
whole
But no,
process.
at some point, we probably over a glass of wine or two decided
That makes sense.
uh, we need to build this statue. And, Andrew, sometimes I will just mention something and he just takes it and runs. So um, he's a very good husband that way. Um, so yeah, then he's very exact. So he built out a statue that was 8,000 times the original statue, which is 4.3 centimeters, I think, about this big. And so it was supposed to be 6 feet tall. She's bigger and wider. And yeah, he had a few modifications. Like I thought the original arms were too skinny, so I said he should give her Aretha Franklin arms. Like, when she's in there, there was one what is that? Natural Woman, and
Mm,
she's like singing it for the White House dinner, and she's
yes.
up there with her arms, and her arms are just like shaking, and they're so powerful. And like yeah, I remember that moment seeing her because I was always scared as a younger woman to have like big arms, and I was like, that's so dumb. Her arms are cool. Like,
Yes.
so I said to him, yeah, you have to. And then she only has like I think 2 fingers. And so he gave her my hand. So I have kind of stubbly hands. So her hands are crafted after my hands. And yeah, other than that, she's pretty close to the original, I think.
Unbelievable. Glorious goddess. That you can go and sit by in the morning, having your morning coffee.
Yeah.
Well, so you have produced over 50 books, anthologies, um, on all things uh, sacred feminine. That's your focus, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
just
primarily women authors. We've had a few guys, but I try to really have women be central because the publishing world is so centered on men.
men, indeed,
Yeah.
glorious. Okay, so let's switch gears. How do you respond to people who say that spirituality should stay out of politics?
um,
That was a great answer.
I think that's kind of impossible. Like,
Uh,
I mean, for me,
yeah,
spirituality is so much a part of everything.
of
And
course.
I think spirituality has been used to control us for so long. And, for instance, like, I'm going to talk abortion. Why can't women have abortions? Women have been having abortions for thousands of years. It's not anything new. And even in the United States, it wasn't that long ago that it was perfectly fine to have an abortion. Even in Islam, you're permitted to have an abortion the first 4 months in particular, with just, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just part of life.
Agency,
And it
right.
has been part of life forever.
Well, and I think before we went to monotheism and male, particularly male dominated monotheism, the woman was the creator. It all began with her, with the goddess. So of course she had full agency and over her health choices and her body. Um, yeah, I'm always shocked when people I'm spirit well, and we should note here when we say spirit, we're talking about religion. We're not talking about quote unquote spirituality. It's really religion that is putting this control on female, making all of the things that were focused primarily on women and her sensuality, her all of, and this is why I want to get into Anat, all of her rage, her all of the things that patriarchy and monotheistic religion wanted to squelch and make women soft and tame. And when she is, you know, vibrant and sensual and alive, all of these things that have just that we've been it's so baked into society, which is why you wouldn't have had that conversation as a young person. I wouldn't have had that either. Those kinds of conversations about
Well, just
questions.
think how different the world would be if young girls were taught to honor their sensuality and explore their bodies on their own, enjoy their sexuality before they were even thought about being with a man. Like
Yeah.
I'm very much for giving girls when they're ready for them toys if they want them.
Yeah. I love that.
I was the
I
dildo
wish I had
auntie
had a
for
toy.
most of my friends' children.
I wish I had a toy when I was young. I didn't even have these conversations with my own mother. I mean, and she was not a prude, but you just didn't do it.
No, yeah, I mean, I think this is a fairly recent thing. I've seen it more on social media the last years or so. But I mean, why not? I mean, wouldn't you rather have your daughter explore herself than with some guy who doesn't know what he's doing anyway and probably isn't going to give her pleasure? Sorry to say, but I don't know a lot of open younger men.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's not from my experience. I think sex definitely got better with age.
Totally. I
And
would agree.
maybe if I had had, a dildo when I was younger, it could have been way better because I would have had an idea of what I wanted more so than,
Yeah.
like I
What you
didn't
need,
know either because I didn't have experience and,
you didn't know what to ask for. Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
I don't even think I knew I could ask. I mean, that's kind of the mentality I came from. It's very, you have to wait till you're married and
Oh,
yeah,
good grief. Yeah. Oh, you were
yeah.
raised as one of those. Well, honestly, we didn't even talk about that in my house. We weren't raised particularly religiously, but I was raised Christian, but we were more holiday Christians. And I was pretty curious about things. I was pretty clear young at a young age, probably by middle school, that I loved church. I loved singing in church and I loved the pageantry
I
and the
love singing in
ritual.
church too. Yeah.
I loved the music and I,
That's
I
why I
loved
did the
going into houses
hymnals.
of worship. Oh, yes, that's right. You did. Yeah.
I got to send you a hymnal.
Oh, please. I would love
And a
that.
solstice carol book. Yeah, because I that was hard for me because I stopped singing for at least a decade because that's the singing I had done was in church. And so it's like then I felt like I didn't want to sing those songs.
Right. Well, everyone's reimagined the lyrics
Hmm.
in these books as well, which makes them really powerful for women. I love that. But I was pretty clear that I was not organized religion was not for me. I was, starting to really explore other things, other Eastern religions, energy work. I wasn't really what I didn't really hear and understand about the goddess a lot until probably my late 20s. And when I really started looking into Wiccan and goddess traditions and the divine feminine and the mythologies and stuff. And then I really just went full on in when I got Women Who Run with the Wolves. It was like my little personal Bible.
Oh yeah.
It was just fantastic.
I always say women should reread that every single year.
Totally. It
And the Great Cosmic Mother.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So so I we've brought this up prior to hopping on the microphone, folks. We talked about this is why I wanted to bring up Anat, who, by the way, I didn't know, Trista. I hadn't heard of
Hardly
that
anyone
goddess.
knows about her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell us about her. This is
You know,
she's my new like my this is who I want to bow down to.
quite honestly, I didn't know about her myself until, I mean, I guess I heard her name in passing, but I hadn't seen anything specific, like along, just like references here and there, because she is associated with Asherah and Astarte.
Mhm.
Um, but when I heard about her, this like hit me so hard. Wizard Bassan from Gaza was talking about this hymn to the goddess Anat, by a Palestinian singer named Rimbana. And it's so beautiful. It's like it's such a beautiful hymn. And so I immediately went to get the English transliteration, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I'll send you the lyrics. But I was immediately in love with her from that moment. And I've listened to that song so many times because it's just like it really goes deep into your soul when you hear that song, and especially understanding what the Palestinians have been living through for 78 years, and more specifically the last 2.5 years. Just this call to the mother. It's just one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking songs I think I've ever heard. So the other thing that really puzzled me about that song, and I still haven't completely unraveled, is that in the West, she's seen as like a warrior goddess. And I've seen that trend come up, which is maybe you can go down that road, but I was trying to stay on track. That they're warlike. Um, I have a suspicion that has something to do with our vision of Arabs being warlike.
Mm,
Um, but I'm not certain that that's correct. I think that she has more the mother bear energy, and that she's
yes,
protective,
primal,
and
right?
that, yeah, the primal rage, like she's often like associated with like Kali. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to unravel with her. And I think I didn't update you about this bit, but I want to actually incorporate more voices from the region before I go finish that anthology, because I think that is critical to presenting her accurately, because I'm not sure we're there yet with what we have in English.
Oh, I love that. Oh, wow. Yeah,
And there's so many more books being published now, or well, they've already been published in Arabic, but now being published in English. So I think it's kind of cool when we can all kind of converge, like the information that we have, because I'm not sure that it's always going to match up.
right.
Yeah.
Well, truly, and I love that you brought up Mother Bear energy. But what I really loved in the warrior, those who think about the warrior, of course, they can jump to, you know, men killing and dominating and being brutal, and that stereotype of Arabs. But I think of warrior as the warrior for love in terms of there's a ferocity of protection like the mother bear that you are willing to show, and that
Yeah.
it's not soft.
Right.
It's the mothering
But
is
I think
not
it's
soft,
also,
it's kind and loving, but it can be
yeah,
ferocious. And I
right.
love
Yes,
that
absolutely.
whole vision of femaleness, that it is not needing it's not soft and needing protection and weak and supplicant to any male energy. It is has a huge spectrum. It's multitudes. Femaleness is a multitude of emotions and perspectives and skills.
Yeah, I think though it is important to say that I don't think warrior goddesses were necessary before patriarchy.
Good
So,
point, folks.
like there have been people that said, well, warrior goddesses, it's kind of an oxymoron, but I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle there that, of course, before patriarchy, when we were living in peaceful societies, you know, unless you're in like a mother bear situation where it's in nature and,
Right.
something is coming to attack the cubs. But I think there's a lot of evidence to show that people were living in peaceful societies and they wouldn't have needed to do that.
Reciprocity, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving towards Gaza, I love that you brought up this Palestine singer-songwriter. Trista is very outspoken about Palestine and speaking up for, I mean, with this new war in Lebanon, Israel attacking Lebanon, you just must be, how is your family there in Lebanon?
I would say it's pretty much worse every day. It's now being classified as a genocide and an ecocide. There's
Yeah.
over 1.3 million people who've been
Oh,
displaced just from the south of Lebanon. That's in a country of about 5 million people living there, and it's a very small country. So you also have all these Syrian refugees that have recently come, in the last decade or so that have been Lebanon has, I think, the highest percentage of Syrian refugees, which, makes sense because they are right
right.
next door to
Yeah.
each other.
Mhm.
But then they also have the Palestinian refugees from
Refugees.
1948. So it's a country that's already been so um, ravaged, by so many things, by wars, by civil war, by, you know, having Israel right next door. Um, and then, financial crises, and it's just kind of just a pile on. So it's very difficult to watch. And, when you're forcibly displaced, you get a notice and you have to be gone like in an hour. Like in one case, a building a few days ago was given an hour to leave at 1 a.m. in the morning. 1 a.m. Like imagine how you are. And the next hour, it was demolished. It was flattened. And it's just almost unbelievable. And it's probably more unbelievable to most people because it's not given the coverage that it deserves in the media. Like this today, I was so happy. I was at the gym earlier, which is what only place I really get the Norwegian news. I'm not really big on most news, but I always have been watching like to see what kind of coverage they're getting in Lebanon and Palestine. And so I was so happy today because unfortunately, this is not the part I'm happy about. An entire family was killed with 6 children
Yeah, I
in their
saw that
home.
online this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, and it's actually a friend of my sister-in-law's family. So, and it's her birthday. So it's, yeah. Um, but they finally gave coverage to it today. So I took a picture while I was on the elliptical, and because I was legitimately like just so happy that they finally put it on the news, and they
Yeah.
gave it like 15 seconds and went straight over to Cannes Film Festival and gave that like a 10-minute fluff
Yeah.
segment. And I'm just thinking, what are the priorities here? Like, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really it's remarkable. Well, and here in I remember last time we spoke, I was just beginning to get a lot of pushback from my Jewish friends about that were angry with me for being um, calling out Israel, and it's really turned into a friendship breaking understanding here. And I've witnessed it in my own life. I mean, I haven't lost a friend. Well, I've I wouldn't say lost friends, but people have we've distanced ourselves. I've been called anti-Semite because I'm pro-Palestine. I'm clear that it is a genocide, and you can say you can wrap this any way you want. You can wrap Zionism any way you want. Um, and I understand, and right around that time is when I really dove in and educated myself in an enormous way, because I felt I didn't have I was not clear on what was really happening in that part of the world. And so I, did a massive deep dive on YouTube with historians, and both Jewish and Palestinian writers and historians, and the whole nine yards, to get the history of the region, the history of the conflict, the creation of Israel, all of it. And and as I told some of my Jewish friends, I said, I've become even more pro-Palestine now that I'm so well educated on it.
Yeah.
It's it flabbergasts me how here in the United States, to be anti-Zionism is, there's no separate, you can't separate the vision from the propaganda here. It's so
Well, which
difficult.
is kind of a little bit crazy to me because there are many Jews who are anti-Zionist, and there are
I
many
know.
Jewish people who have also spoken out against this and written about it extensively. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's what I
mean,
bring up with
it
my
is,
friends.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know any of this until I went to Lebanon and I saw it with my own eyes, and
Yeah,
that changed my entire life perspective.
I'm
Um,
sure.
so for me, it's been about 30 years of this. So, uh, yeah, it is frustrating that we're still here and there's still, I mean, I've also been called an anti-Semite, but I'm like, Palestinians and Lebanese are Semites also.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. This is another thing that I learned. I'm
and
like,
that's,
wait, you can't be using anti-Semite. You can't in this situation.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For our listeners, the Semite people, they're Semites. Do some Googling on the linguistic history of the word Semite before you start throwing around anti-Semitism.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's exhausting to talk about. And I'm looking at the time, and we need to begin to close out here. But I did want to bring up, because this time of the year we're talking about um, the summer solstice, the illumination of this time, and really being present to that, folks. Really allowing this time of year and the power of the sun, and the inspiration of illumination to guide you this month and always. um Juneteenth, thinking about liberation and the history, the actual history here in the United States of people of color, the enslaved people. Educate yourself on that. And Father's Day and sacred masculinity. Um, and it makes me instantly think of this quote unquote loneliness epidemic that young men are feeling, at which of course is nonsense. If you're, if no one is sleeping with you or dating you, I think it's not their fault. I think it's a call to look within, and a massive call for masculinity to evolve. But what are some of your thoughts on how you feel masculinity is breaking down and or shifting in today's world? What are your thoughts on that? What are you seeing?
I feel like it's going in two very different directions.
Mm,
We have some that are going very far right and more wanting to go back into like these very traditional, mm,
yes.
yeah, I don't even know how to classify that. But and then I see, well, I do see a middle ground. One thing that the Epstein files I think has shown me is that a lot of men have not spoken out, which has really pissed me off.
And with this new rape academy story, oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God.
And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy because even if you think that you're like a good man, don't you think you should, or
Say
check in on the
something.
women in your life, all these things. So yeah, I mean, that's a bit frustrating.
Yeah,
So I
no, it's
mean,
enraging.
yeah, I would have said in some ways that the sacred masculine is rising, but with that caveat that I think more of those men, if they are actually to do the work of the sacred masculine, they should be also speaking out against all sorts of injustices, and especially, well, not especially towards women in the case of, sexual assault, rape, all of these things, because I mean, most of the time they are committed by other males,
Mhm.
and that doesn't happen in a vacuum. And we can surely do better than, I mean, I just can't believe that it's 2026 and this is where we're at.
Uh,
It's terrified to have a young, like my daughter's 20 years old, and it's just, we're in probably the safest country in the world for women, but I still worry all the time.
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, here in the States, it's hard to believe what's evolved. How we, the pedophile in chief who wants to cover up this ridiculous, all the Epstein files, this incredible structure of abusive men, and the women who have the longest leash for these men, the women who support this, the women who just have misogyny baked into them as well. They, it's really it's troubling. It's hard to, as we talked about before we jumped on the mic, it's hard to wrap your brain around how someone gets there.
Well, I think, I don't know that they're ever going to release everything or give justice, but I think we just need to start calling them out ourselves. And we
Yeah,
should at least all be warned against men who are rapists and pedophiles.
yeah.
And we're going to be doing a book of healing spells and rituals, because I feel like we're also so inundated with like survivor testimonies, which of course I do try to listen to those because I think they're really important.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important that we collectively hear these women, and or now women. Um, but it also, like, we need to have some sort of outlet for all of this, because we're just processing way too much at this point. And if
Yeah,
you're a survivor yourself, like I am, it's very difficult to like just go on this loop constantly. I mean, we need to have tools to deal with this, because otherwise, well, maybe it needs, maybe we need to just all go crazy and just
I just,
chase all the men out. I don't know, but
well, certainly if we've learned nothing, I just, I've stopped saying it's never going to happen. I've since 45 got on the scene and then turned into 47. I've stopped saying that it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. And no, we have no idea. We remain in this liminal space of what the way things were is no more, and where we're moving is unknown. And as I say over and over to my friends and my husband and anyone who will listen, I feel that I was made for these times, and that's why I do the work that I do, to lift up my voice and the voices of others to meet these challenging times in which we find ourselves. And I hope that I see the birth of the new in my lifetime.
yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah. Well, I think that's a lovely closing. I'm going to read a quote by Starhawk, um, whom I met at had the pleasure of meeting that same goddess
Oh yeah.
gathering. The goddess is not separate from the world. She is the world and all things in it: moon, sun, earth, star, stone, seed, flowing river, wind, wave, leaf and branch, bud and blossom, fang and claw, woman and man.
Mhm.
Amen. May it be so. Beautiful. Well, Trista, any closing words that you want to share with our listeners about your work, Girl God Books, et cetera, where we can find you?
No, I think you've done a great job of covering it all. So thank you so much for having me on again.
Great. It's girlgodbooks.com. Is that correct?
No, thegirlgod.com.
Thegirlgod.com. Thegirlgod.com, which I said at the beginning correctly.
Yeah.
And of course, that'll be in all the show notes. And some of the things you've referenced, I'll include that in the show notes as well, listeners. Well, thank you again, dear Trista, for joining me for this very poignant conversation.
Thank you.
And to my listeners, remember, the edge is where you come alive. Till we speak again, take good care. Come on. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for spending time with us here on the Edge of Everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no man has fall under pressure. Come on.
Hey, everyone. Thanks again for spending time with us here on the Edge of Everyday. I'm so grateful for your support. Please hit subscribe and follow us. You can find me, Sandra Bargman, across social media. Links are always in the show notes. And please leave us a review at Apple Podcasts. Much gratitude to my inspiring guests. Thank you for sharing your challenges, your reflections, your wit and wisdom. And lastly, many thanks to Magic Thread Media and the executive coaching team at Create Magic at Work. Remember, the edge is where you come alive. The edge of everyday.
Pressure pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no man has fall under pressure.
Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to a Magic Thread Media podcast.